This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Welcome to Construction Genius, episode 48. My name is Eric Anderton. 2,500 years ago, there lived a man named Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a prophet living in the time of crisis in what was left of the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel at this time was long fallen from the peak of their glory under the reigns of David and Solomon. Their kings, their priests, their prophets, and their people were all corrupt. And Jeremiah was a prophet coming to them with a clear message that the decisions they were making in their lives and their refusals to listen to the warnings that he gave them and other prophets gave them about changing their ways were going to result in dire consequences for that nation. You see, because Israel lies at the crossroads of three continents. If you think about where Israel is situated on the map, you have Europe, you have Asia, and you have Africa, all colliding around the crossroads of Israel on the eastern Mediterranean. And there, Israel found itself under pressure from Egypt to the south, Babylon to the north, and despite the pressure that they were under, they refused to change their ways. And despite the messages of prophets such as Jeremiah, they continued to live in a way of corruption and abandonment of their values. Now, you have a deep challenge as the leader of a construction company. You have a duty and a responsibility to lead your people, a duty to your stakeholders, to employees, to clients, and to project partners. And you need support. You need support in that duty. You need advice. You need input. Because you must make decisions, and no one can take that duty of leadership away from you. But you need support and perspective. Because sometimes you see things clearly, and sometimes you don't. You need advice. But the question is where will that advice come from? And who will you listen to? Just like the kings of Israel needed prophets like Jeremiah telling them the truth about the situation they were in, so you need people telling you the truth about your company and about your leadership. In today's episode of Construction Genius, we're going to look at three things. I'm going to ask three questions. Number one, who are your Jeremiahs? What is the message of the Jeremiahs in your company? And why are they important? Why is it important to have people who will tell you the truth, particularly when you are in a place of senior leadership? And at the end of the podcast today, I'm going to give you some action items regarding how you should respond to the Jeremiahs in your life. So first, let's take a look at who are your Jeremiahs. Well, you're going to find Jeremiahs in various different places. You're going to find them first internally. I'd like you to think of someone internally who you know, regardless of what it might cost them, will be willing to tell you the truth. Perhaps you came up through the trades and you're now in an executive position in your organization, and you know people who you've had a relationship with for many years in your company. And maybe they haven't risen to the same level of executive leadership as you have because of the career choices that they've made. But nevertheless, they know you very well, and they know your company very well. And they're the type of person who can sit down and have a glass of wine or a beer or a cocktail with you at the end of the day. And you know that they're going to tell you the truth about your organization. It could be your clients who might be willing to tell you the truth. You know, the folks that you've been doing business with for 5, 10, 15 years, you've built many projects for them, and they're committed to you and you're committed to them. And one of the things you like about them is that when things are messed up on a project, they're not going to varnish it, but they're going to be able to pick up the phone or come into your office, or you go into their office, and they're going to tell you the truth about what's going on. Perhaps it might be a subcontractor or a general contractor, someone external to you that you have a deep relationship with, that you trust, who will again tell you the truth. It could even be an advisor. It could be your CPA, your banker, someone who provides you your bonds. It could even be a business coach or an executive advisor. And the key about these Jeremiahs is that they understand your company. Think about the people that you know, either internally or externally, who understand your company, the culture of your company. I was having a very interesting chat with one of my clients today, and he is an executive leader in a construction company. And we were talking about how the culture of his company results in certain decisions being made that at times can be frustrating to him, but because that's the culture of the company, he has to adjust himself to that culture. And that's one of the keys with the Jeremiahs who are going to benefit you, is they understand the purpose and the values of your company, how the company shows up on its best days. And they also have deep insight into the strategic goals of the organization. And they not only understand the company, but they care about the company. Think about how much you care about your business. If you've built it with your own hands from the ground up, you have a deep commitment to that business. And it is so beneficial for you to have other folks, either internally or externally, who actually care about you and your company. The people internally, particularly, they've parked their ego. They're not really in it for career positioning or necessarily in it so that they can be seen as preeminent or prominent in your organization. They just care a lot about the success of the company, and they want your company to be able to win projects and build projects in an excellent manner. They're not just about collecting a salary, but they put your company's best interests at the forefront when they are giving you feedback. And they're all about telling you the truth. They're all about living with integrity and, to the best of their ability, living out the values of your organization. And because they understand your company and they care about the company, they are going to be able to see things clearly. And that's interesting. If you think about the word prophet from the Old Testament, it's the idea of the word seer. Right? A prophet is someone who sees things. And that's what you need in your business. You need people internally, particularly, but also externally, who can see things about your company and communicate to you the truth about what's going on. So think about an old school foreman or superintendent in your organization. And again, maybe you came up through the field together, and you know if you pick up the phone and talk to him, he'll tell you exactly what's going on a project. He'll tell you if the PM's clueless, if the customer or the client's trying to hose you, if the GC is being fair or not, or the subs are, being lazy. Whatever the case is, that person has a clear perspective. They care about your business. They understand your business, and they'll tell you the truth. See, the problem about people like this, though, is that many times in history, the seers, and perhaps even in your company, they're often the contrarians, right? They're often the ones saying, no, this is not working. We need to fix this. They're not just putting a shiny, happy face on things that are going on in your organization. They're the ones willing to call the time out and say, no, this is not right. This shouldn't go on anymore. And as a result of that, the seers or the prophets or the Jeremiahs, they can sometimes be a burr in your saddle, right? A pain in your neck. They're the types of people when they walk in the office, they're going to say something clear to you and something that you may not like, but in the back of your mind, you need to hear it. It's really important that you're willing for that contrarian perspective in your organization so that you can grasp the truth is about your company. And another thing about these Jeremiahs is sometimes they're oddly packaged. They're not necessarily smooth and polished and sophisticated, but they are direct and correct in many cases. And if you look back in the Old Testament, right, many of the prophets were badly dressed and they weren't exactly hip and cool leaders, so to speak. And because of their outward appearance and the nature of their message and even the way that they delivered it, it was often hard for people to hear the message. And sometimes in your company, your Jeremiahs are like that as well. But you've got to understand this. You should be looking for those Jeremiahs, the people who know your company, the people who care about your company, the people who see clearly and who are willing to tell you the truth. So let's look at the second thing. What is the message of those Jeremiahs? Well, like I've been saying the whole time, it's the truth. They're going to come with a clear perspective of how they see the organization. They are going to tell you the truth. And there's three aspects of truth they're going to communicate to you. They're going to communicate to you truth about people. They're going to communicate to you the truth about the processes of your organization and how they're working. And they'll tell you the truth about how effective the projects are that you're building at the moment. And what you need to be able to do is to hear those messages, because they're going to come to you sometimes with things that you naturally don't want to hear. But you must listen to them as they tell you the truth about people and about the processes in your business and about the projects that you are building. And oftentimes they'll come with the truth on a deeper level. Let's say you've clearly identified the values of your business, the way you guys want to show up on a daily basis, and you've clearly identified the purpose of your business. And they'll come at a deeper level and they'll communicate to you when those values and that purpose is not being lived out. So let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, you highly value taking care of your clients. They'll come to you and they'll let you know when your clients are being neglected. And you know why? It's because those Jeremiahs care about your company, they know your company, and they care about the reputation of your organization. And the very best Jeremiahs, it's really interesting, they don't just come to you and say, hey, there's a problem, but they also come with a solution. They understand how your culture works. They understand how your company works and their position within the organization. And when they see a problem, they don't just say, hey, there's a problem. Because finding problems in life is not a big challenge, right? It's not difficult to find problems. Just look in the mirror, man. You're going to find problems in your life every single day, right? It's not about seeing the problems necessarily and telling the truth about that. That is so helpful. But it's also coming with solutions, coming with ideas, coming with insights regarding what you can do to overcome those issues. It's telling you the truth about your current situation and then also giving you some insights into what you can do to change that situation. Those are the kinds of Jeremiahs that you're looking for in your company. Now let's look at the third thing. Why are Jeremiahs important? Think about your schedule at the moment. I was chatting with one of my clients just recently. It was actually about an hour ago. And he was telling me about the challenging year that he had in his business. He's been working 70-hour weeks, really bearing the burden of the challenges that his company is facing. And that burden at times can become overwhelming. You know what I'm talking about. If you run a business, you know the times that perhaps you've slept in your office, or the times that you've felt the weight of a project that's going south, or a personnel issue that is just deeply entrenched and hard to overcome. And you're very busy, and you're very burdened by the responsibilities that you face. And when you look at those responsibilities and the burdens that you face, you see them from one perspective. But it is only one perspective. You are only one person. And that's one of the deep challenges about being a leader, is that there's a certain isolation to it. There's a certain aloneness. And you can get consumed in your own perspective and your own view about your business and about your organization. And that can hinder you regarding seeing how to overcome some of the challenges that you face. And another thing that you are challenged with is that it is at times easy to be deceived about what's going on in your organization. And deception is an interesting thing. Have you ever thought that you were right about a situation, and then as circumstances unfolded, you began to realize that in fact you were wrong? But at the time when you thought you were right, you were absolutely convinced that you were right about a situation. Not only can we get deceived thinking that we're right when in fact we're wrong, but we can also ignore our problems. What problems are you ignoring in your business at the moment? What problems are you hoping fix themselves? Most of the time, problems don't fix themselves on a project, particularly problems around safety or quality or around production. They just don't fix themselves. They must be addressed. But you're so busy and you only have one perspective, and it's sometimes the case that you get the wrong perspective, and sometimes you ignore your problems. You just need someone who will tell you the truth. Plenty of toadies can surround you. People who are looking for a place of security, who are willing just to blow smoke your way so that you can feel good about yourself. Now, you may think, I'm not going to allow those kinds of people around me, but don't be deceived. People in authority, people in power, we like those places of authority and power, and it's easy to hear the soothing words of people who are looking to position themselves for long-term success, who are looking to prop us up, but who aren't willing to tell us the hard truths that we need to hear. And so it's so important that you get those Jeremiahs around you who can interrupt you in the midst of your busyness and perhaps provide some clarity for you in the midst of your fogginess. And you know that you have confidence in them, that they're not going to blow smoke or tell you something that's not the case, but they will tell you the truth. So far we've taken a look at who are the Jeremiahs, what their message is, and why they are important. Now, it's easy for you to listen to the podcast here today and say, you know what, man, I know what I'm doing. I don't need any of those outside voices. I've built this business by myself, or I've built my career by myself. It's all on my shoulders. And I think about that classic movie, Downfall, which is a German movie. It was out a few years ago, and it is it's a movie all about the last days of Hitler. And one of the scenes in the movie was when Hitler is down in his bunker in Berlin. The Russians are closing in, and he's in this little room. You see it in memes on the internet, on YouTube all the time. And the generals are coming to him, trying to tell him the truth about the military situation that he is facing. And you can see that he's completely delusional about what's going on. Now, I'm not saying that you're Hitler. You know I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to make a point. It's so easy for us to miss what's really going on in our organizations. And all the while, the walls might be caving in, or the issues might be much greater than we think they are. And we just need someone like Jeremiah who's willing to tell us the truth. And you see, that was the problem in the kingdom of Israel. They refused to listen to Jeremiah, and they paid the price for their stubbornness and their insistence on their own way. And it's interesting about Jeremiah too, is that his life didn't end up all roses either. Like many of the prophets, you know what happened to him? He actually got carried away into Egypt and died there away from his homeland. And that's one of the things that Jeremiahs are willing to do, is they're willing to pay the price to tell the truth. It may not be comfortable, it may not be popular, but they are willing to pay the price. So how should you respond to the Jeremiahs in your organization? The problem back in the time of Israel was that the kings and the prophets and the priests and the other guys there, they just didn't like Jeremiah coming and telling them the truth. And so you know what they did? They imprisoned him. And what he would do is he would send some scrolls to them with a message of God on those scrolls. And you know what they did with the scrolls? They burned them, and they conspired to kill him. And that's the problem with many people in leadership, is they don't receive the message of the Jeremiahs. Now, I know you're saying, I'm not going to be burning books, sending anyone to prison, or killing anyone. And I totally get that. But you know what we do? We delete emails. We reassign people to positions where they can't bug us, or we even just let people go. And the problem is that once you remove the Jeremiahs from your organization who are willing to tell you the truth doesn't go away. You can't kill the truth. You can kill the messenger, but you can't kill the truth. And that's why you need to protect the Jeremiahs in your organization. You need to be willing for the pain of them telling you the truth, for their perhaps unorthodox approach, and the fact that they are, like I said earlier, kind of a burr in your saddle, and you need to listen to them. Forget the package of the messenger and listen to the message. Don't judge the outward appearance. Don't kill the messenger. Don't allow your fear or your pride to ignore what they're saying. Now, evaluate what they say when they come to you. You must still make the decision. And back in the Old Testament, right, Jeremiah was divinely inspired. These people may not all be divinely inspired, but they have insights into your company that are so important for you to heed. And then once you listen to them and evaluate what they have to say, you then must respond, because one of the worst things you can do is listen to them, evaluate what they say, agree with them, and then do nothing about it. Because if they are telling you the truth and you ignore it, you're going to deeply damage your organization. And the reason why some people don't respond to Jeremiah is because they're afraid of what other people will think about them. You as a leader must be willing for the blowback that comes from your decisions, particularly if they are unpopular decisions. I'll give you an example. My kids love playing video games. And one of the video games they play is called Fortnite. I know you guys are familiar with that. And you can choose different characters for Fortnite. So you can choose male characters or female characters. And I got these young boys, 12, 13, 14 years old. And they like playing with the female characters. And you can imagine that the female characters aren't exactly the most, how shall I put it, modest-looking people. Very cartoony, but not very modest. And so I noticed my kids were playing with these characters as their avatars on this game. And it just didn't sit well with me as a dad. And I began to think about confronting them about it and asking them to change the avatar. And my first thought was, man, if I do that, it's just going to cause a bunch of hassle. What's the big deal? But in my mind, I knew that the truth was I didn't want them playing with those female avatars. So I was willing to go through the pain of their rejection by telling them the truth that they needed to change their avatar. Now, fortunately, they love playing Fortnite so much that they were willing to change their avatar to one of the male avatars. But my point is this. When you know the truth and you do nothing about it, it damages you and it damages your organization. And if you know the truth and you know there's decisions that you have to make, but you're afraid to make those decisions or uncomfortable about making those decisions because of the blowback that you might get, you have to fight through that. You have to go right towards that blowback and do what is difficult. In this podcast, we've talked about who your Jeremiahs are, what is their message, and why they are important. And the question is, how will you respond to them? If you don't have a Jeremiah within your company, look for one outside. Again, like I said earlier, it could be your CPA. It could be some kind of an executive advisor. It could be even a legal advisor, someone who understands your company, who appreciates your company, who has the best interests of your company in mind, and who is willing to tell you the truth about how things are going. Because you as a leader often are in a lonely position. You need to hear what people have to say and then respond to those things appropriately. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Construction Genius. I appreciate you listening. Check out my YouTube channel. Just look at for my name, Eric Anderton. I've recorded this podcast with video as well, and you can check out those videos. I do snippets of the show as well as full episodes of the show. And as always, give me your feedback. Go to Google or to Apple where you get your podcasts. Give us a review. If you think we've earned a 5-star review, please give us that 5-star review with your comments. That helps us as far as getting visibility for the Construction Genius podcast. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And as always, you can go to my website, ericanderton.com. You'll find a number of resources there that will help you in your construction leadership. Thanks again for listening to the episode today. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.